Okay, so we've got 6 questions. I'll just give everyone a chance to have a think about which parts of those they want to answer. And about 10 or 12 minutes. So you can answer all those questions in 3 minutes each. That'd be great. So our first question was about what are our principles for understanding secularity? What's the framework for moving forward? Second, a comment from Roy about firstly establishing a base concept of personhood that we share. Thank you. And thinking about what the sources of racism and social division might be. Yasmin made the point about the strictures on funding for voluntary sector organisations, but also some of the mergers and collaborations that may happen, which won't necessarily help us get to the core issues that are facing particular groups. Lucy, a reminder that minoritised communities are not necessarily immune from the ideology of racism. Lainey talked about the global-local relationship in terms of funding, but also asked what kind of knowledge networks there might exist to be able to respond to some of that, to some of that power that's expressed through funding from north to south often, and the role of diaspora in driving certain patterns of power relations. And Helene was keen to have a definition of racism from a British perspective. So,
for the next 3 months.
all right, so 3 minutes each, and we'll go in the same order. Pleased to hear, David, and start with David.
In 3 minutes.
Yeah.
No,
do what you
okay.
can.
The microphone.
You've had 1 minute already.
Yeah, I know. I'll take 4 now. I think that Phil's question is the one to which I can sort of stumble towards an answer, and not necessarily give one. I mean, one reflection, I think, which links that question with Sami's comments, which is that the challenge to secularism, as Sami said, is from religious authority. And this, not from religion, but from the claims of religious authority in civil society, and in some ways over state policy. And these were and this is an issue in the UK as well. These were battles which people, liberals and people on the left, thought that they had won decisively in the 1960s, over issues such as the publication of Lady Chatterley's Lover, and in the reform of abortion law, and in the measures towards the legalization of homosexuality. Which is why, and just as a comment on how we got here now, which is why the burning of the Satanic Verses was such a shock for liberals and the left, because it changed the terms of the debate, and I think many of the discussions that we're having today are framed by the fact that we still have not come to terms with that and haven't got answers to that. And you asked for a blueprint. I mean, I think there is no blueprint, and we cannot look, no, I know you didn't, and we cannot look to other countries, because we've heard today that, you know, laïcité in France hasn't provided an effective answer. And one could go across other European states. What I think we have heard about is where the cutting edge of these fights are going to be, and above all, I think that's why the politics of education are so important in the years going forward. And so you asked, where ought we focus our energies? And I do think that education is one of the key places where we ought to do so. I think over funding and independence and bleak times, I concur and I sympathise and just reflect how lucky I am that I have a funder who who lets me do what I want, and if any, and
There are more of those around.
and everyone should be as lucky as that. I think that Lisa's point is an important one about the the framework of the United Kingdom, but we need to be aware, I think, as well, that the United Kingdom does not always live up to its proclaimed ideals. We've heard about this again in the politics of education. These are limits on effective toleration there. One just has to think about the effective treatment of refugees in this country against the cant that we hear time and time again about the country's treatment of asylum. So yes, let's applaud the tradition of toleration, the framework of toleration insofar as it exists, but also call on governments to live up to it. Just lastly, on Halima's point, I just want to sort of indicate an interesting area where there actually is work going on, comparing experience in the United States to experience in the UK. And there's sort of a lot of work by historians and sociologists in the United States comparing what they call old and new immigrants and the trajectories of old and new immigrants in the United States, from the sort of, as it were, the classical era of immigration to the United States, 1880 to 1920, to the period after 1960, when immigrants no longer came from Europe, but came from Asia and also from Central and Southern America. And those discussions about old and new immigrants are now being transposed to a British and a European context. And I think that is a very interesting area for a future reflection, not least as a way of making people in Britain and in Europe more widely aware of the deeper histories of immigration in their countries.